So, what if I told you that our entire modern world, everything from the computer you're watching this on to the way our global economy works, was basically prototyped in one single, notoriously rainy city in the north of England? Well, that city is Manchester, and its story, well, it's pretty much the story of our world.
I know, it sounds a little improbable, right? But seriously, Manchester's history is one of the most explosive and influential you could ever read about. It's the city of radical firsts, and they pop up where you would least expect them. For example, the digital age? Yeah, you could argue it started right here. Back in 1948, scientists at the University of Manchester powered up a machine they called the Manchester Baby. It was the world's very first computer that could store and run a program from its own electronic memory. Every single smartphone, laptop, and tablet we use today, they all owe a little something to that moment.
But let's rewind the clock even further. The nuclear age? It has roots here too. In 1917, inside a university lab, a physicist named Ernest Rutherford did something nobody had ever done before. He artificially split the atom. It was a breakthrough that would literally change science, and unfortunately warfare, forever.
And now for something completely different. The modern vegetarian movement? You guessed it, that also kicked off here. The world's first ever vegetarian society was founded just outside the city way back in 1847. They were promoting a plant-based diet as a moral, healthy choice. So you've got computers, split atoms, and vegetarianism. What is it about this city?
Okay, so these moments aren't just random bits of trivia. They're all part of a pattern. Manchester became the blueprint for the modern industrial city, for all the good and all of the bad that came with it. And the engine that first roared to life and powered this whole transformation, it was cotton. This is really where Manchester's quiet history just stops, and its violent, chaotic, and world-changing story begins. The city became the absolute white-hot center of the Industrial Revolution. Just look at these numbers to get a sense of how fast this all happened. In less than a century, the city's population exploded by 12 times, from around 25,000 people to well over 300,000. People were just flooding in from the countryside, from famine-stricken Ireland, all looking for work in these new, massive, steam-powered cotton mills. Manchester was basically a city built overnight.
And this created a city of just shocking contradictions. On one hand, you had Cottonopolis, the global capital of cotton, a place generating wealth on a scale nobody had ever seen, driving all this incredible technological progress. But the flip side, well, the human price was just devastating. We're talking brutal, dangerous work, and people crammed into squalid, disease-ridden slums.
And that's not an exaggeration. A young German philosopher, Friedrich Engels, was actually sent to Manchester to work in his family's business, and what he saw just horrified him. His writings about the conditions in the city's slums, they became the brutal, real-world evidence for the theories he and his famous friend, Karl Marx, would go on to develop. Manchester was the front line of a brand new kind of class warfare.
But out of those fiery, awful conditions, something else was forged, a truly unbreakable spirit of rebellion. You see, Mancunians didn't just put up with hardship, they fought back. And in doing that, they helped shape our modern ideas of democracy and human rights.
And this is the perfect symbol of that spirit, the worker bee. He was adopted way back in 1842, and it wasn't about being a mindless drone. No, it represented the hive, that collective, tireless, powerful effort of the city's working people. It was a real statement of pride.
And that symbol has proven to be incredibly resilient. After the horrific Manchester Arena attack in 2017, the worker bee just reappeared everywhere, on murals and shop windows, as tattoos. It was reborn, It became this powerful emblem of the city's unity, its defiance, and its absolute refusal to be broken.
This rebellious streak, it runs deep. You have the Peterloo Massacre, where peaceful protesters demanding the right to vote were literally cut down by cavalry. You have Emmeline Pankhurst, who launched the whole militant suffragette movement right from her Manchester living room. And maybe most incredible of all, during the American Civil War, Manchester's mill workers supported the Union's blockade of slave-picked cotton. They stood in solidarity against slavery, even though it cut off their cotton supply, cost them their jobs, and basically starved their families. It was just an act of extraordinary moral courage.
So what happened when those industrial fires started to die down? Well, that rebel spirit, it didn't just vanish. It just found a new way to express itself, a new kind of noise. It found music.
Yeah, as the mills and factories started closing down in the late 20th century, the city fell into this kind of post-industrial silence.
But that silence didn't last long. It was soon filled by this massive creative explosion that would, once again, put Manchester right back on the global map.
And you can trace a direct line here. It's amazing. It starts with writers like Elizabeth Gaskell, giving a literary voice to the suffering of the working class. Then, over a century later, you get bands like Joy Division, who literally turned the stark, gray, post-industrial landscape into sound. Then came the Smiths, with Morrissey's poetic and biting social commentary. And finally, you get Oasis, who took all that working-class swagger and just broadcast it to the entire planet. The sound of the city changed, but the story it was telling was pretty much the same.
Which brings us to Manchester's final, and maybe its most defining characteristic. This almost unbelievable ability to reinvent itself, to rise from its own ashes again and again and again.
You see this pattern repeat all through its history. In World War II, the Manchester Blitz completely flattened the city center. It happened again in 1996 when a massive IRA bomb caused enormous devastation. But both times, the destruction actually became a catalyst. It cleared the slate, creating this blank canvas for bold, ambitious reinvention and allowing the city to rebuild itself even stronger than before.
And that's exactly what happened. The city that was once the world's industrial engine has totally transformed. Today, it's a major European hub for digital technology. For media, the BBC has a huge base here. And for that same raw creativity that gave us all that amazing music. The engine is different, but the energy is exactly the same.
So from a small Roman fort to the crucible of industry, from political rebellion to a musical revolution, Manchester's story is one of constant and often painful rebirth. It's a city that really proves that a crisis can fuel creativity, and that the future is often invented in the most unlikely of places. It really leaves you wondering, what on earth is it going to invent next?